Mustang guys aren't going to like hearing this, but the 1998 Ford Mustang is a reminder that you don't need to be great, you just have to be familiar. The Mustang isn't here to challenge the status quo, but instead make a lackadaisical case for American exceptionalism through the comfort of an engine and gearbox combo so instantly recognizable it's like wandering the hallways of your childhood home in the perfect godless dark as you make your way to the bathroom without hitting anything. You're locked in this perpetual game of operation as you move towards the restroom door without striking the sides. Also, you can empty your bladder into this porcelain receptacle your father forgot to flush, and then lumber back to bed, keenly aware that only 3 more hours stand between you and a freezing cold bus stop. You hastily pull the covers over your head to try and resume the dream your bladder forced you to abandon. And because it's 1998, you will wake up to the Today Show in God's country where people shave with the grain and bet on the San Diego Padres because whatever stupid decisions they want to make are their own business. It's 1998 and there can be no greater freedom than mediating between common sense and the lies you feel like telling yourself. And if it was true then, it's doubly true now, because I operate under the belief that the Mustang had good intentions and that the SN95 was from a period when those intentions were still largely benign. But then, good intentions keep the road to hell pothole free. I'm the Roman. This is Bonus Bottom. I don't think I want to review Mustangs anymore. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the bro. 1998 Mustang, the official car of driving to Best Buy to return your copy of Follow the Leader because you accidentally bought the version without all the swears. You walk in the door and there's 11 people contributing nothing except taking turns asking if you need something. What I need is to be left alone so I can go back to not remembering what I came here to do, and you can go back to cosplaying a decorative houseplant. You know what? No, I'm sorry. I know you don't really want to be doing that either. You see, the SN95 changed the game by making American muscle accessible without the burden of masculinity, because there's nothing inherently macho about an SN95. It's the softest Mustang you can get without wrangling a wild horse. Because if you're still mad about high school, you go get a Charger or a lifted truck and you spar with the drywall in your bedroom. But no, this is American muscle by way of sentimentality. This is the car you get when you go to the grocery store to buy 2 tomatoes, but there are 3 tomatoes left, so you buy all 3 so that the third tomato doesn't have to be left alone. You know, the idea that everything has a spirit. This is a muscle car for projecting personhood, for projecting identity. The SN95 is good because it doesn't have to be. Its owner will project goodness onto it. Even when the ride is rough, even when things break, there is something about this car that inspires the sort of forgiveness only found in parents who actually have a favorite child. And me, I've imprinted my antiquated yearning onto this green machine. Because just let me go back to 1998, okay? It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I miss living in a legible world, with its limited technology, its boring governance, and the dependable demarcation of seasons, not these winters that hold back the spring, and springs that crowd out the summers, and autumns that never even happen. The Mustang is a car for old men in denial, okay? I am 40, and I choose not to address it. The engine here is a 3.8-liter Essex V6, making 150 horsepower and 215 pound-feet of torque, and it hasn't made that in years. Fuel economy is 20 miles per gallon if you have God's favor, and it's matched to the same Ford 4R70W 4-speed automatic that got its start in the Lincoln Mark 8 back in 1993, and then showed up here 3 years later like a coworker who's finally got on board with watching Severance. The power band is as consistent as it's ever been, enough torque to get going straight off the line, and relatively smooth acceleration for highway cruising, but it also has the kind of slightly loose steering of a car that's been well loved, driven hard and enthusiastically, like a bargain at a yard sale. It's far from perfect, but honestly, familiarity beats perfect in a straight line on most days. Sometimes the devil you know is the only person you can stomach being around. For the most part, this feels entirely compliant with tradition, but with a hint of the same rebellious spirit of American muscle that has been rendered less rebellious simply by how commonplace these tended to be. These were a dime a dozen, and even while this one is exceptionally well maintained, it's not an inherent rewrite of the SN95 doctrine. It's the kind of car you can leave parked outside of a gas station in a Rust Belt town without being accosted by the least moisturized faces you've ever seen in your life. Because even while this Mustang, from a design standpoint, seems kind of rebellious, it's also kind of the rebellion of conformity. Because even while it looks different from what came before, it still feels like a recognizable continuation of what you understand a Mustang to be. Particularly in an age and time period where the Mustang, I think, still carried some of that old cultural cachet that I don't really know it carries now, even though it still sells. But then that's all anecdotal anyway. But again, it's accessible. It's an everyman sort of Mustang for that 21 to 45 age demographic of the late 90s who were frustrated by the amount of mileage that late night hosts were still getting out of OJ. It's just that. Ugh, other mechanical. What can be said about this live rear axle that hasn't already been said about the institution of marriage? It's challenging, but you accept the bad times because it's part of a 2-for-1 deal with the good. And you can pretty much say that about any good experience life has to offer. What is joy if not a Faustian bargain with a man in a funny coat outside of a P.F. Chang's? What is contentment if not the curling of the monkey's paw? It burns when you pee, but that's part of the privilege of enjoying a rubberless nut. You thought about asking if she'd been tested, but then your friends called you weird for wanting to do your due diligence, and so you figure it's just as well. What's asking her going to do anyway if I'm not good at reading faces and tones? Traditionally, SN95 Mustangs have more issues than a midtown newsstand, and one of those issues is the live rear axle, and I recognize the struggle on rough surfaces, how badly this craves untroubled roads, as any car really. I mean, what am I gonna ding this for? It's hungry to just travel down roads without having to be thrown all about like a dishwasher inside of a larger, laundromat-sized dishwasher. In the greatest tradition of national resilience, this Mustang soldiers on. It's almost like it didn't want to let me down. It wanted to fight through these pothole-filled roads and come out the other side flying. It's an admirable little machine. And that's something I've always loved about Mustangs. They never stop trying, even as they never stop breaking. Mustangs are characterized by an admirable commitment to living in spite of their mechanical urge to die. This remains cosmetically sound despite the anticipated entropy of a Mustang's physical appearance. And this is thanks to the father of Jack, my terrific volunteer. You see, Jack's dad was a master mechanic with an affinity for Mustangs. Now, maybe he bought this car for his family because he helped write the Chilton manual for the first SN95 back in 1994, or maybe it was just part of his tradition of buying his kids a Mustang for their first car in a model year that aligns with their birth year. Either way, this received a full-scale cosmetic metamorphosis. Tan interior to black and gray, fully reconstructed driver's side quarter panel and door after this got T-boned at a four-way stop by a texting driver. A new spoiler, convertible roof, and glass window, a touchscreen radio and a backup camera, and a paint job in antifreeze green that was so comprehensive that the paint manufacturer used this car as an example on their website. Everything looked and felt younger to my eyes and fingers than it should have on a 28-year-old car. It almost felt modern, anachronistic even, like a teenager named Myrtle. Inside is the familiarly cramped Mustang interior, a cabin that's hosted more conversations about who's going to pay for the Plan B than any other machine in human history. but I still find it oddly comfortable in a way a child is comforted by the possibilities of an empty appliance box. Visibility, it's fine, except for the rain, which could hardly be blamed on the car, although I will say it was the rainiest day I've ever filmed in, and I filmed in England. Mother Nature spent half of the day threatening to thunderstorm, and my inherent mistrust of Mother Nature kept this shooting day on my schedule anyway, because tradition dictates that Mother Nature talks a good game, but has worse follow-through than a parent who really wants to be liked. Back to the paint job. I don't like green, but I like this. It's a striking color and refreshingly devoid of splotches and clusters of water spots that give a car the appearance of being exotically diseased. It's the kind of thing that puts people off and triggers primitive aversions. It's why people with trypophobia make such lousy pancakes. They flip too soon so they don't have to look at the dense cluster of tiny, open wounds, and you end up with lumps of misshapen batter everywhere. It's the kind of thing that sticks with you. Just like this color. Just like this car. Because I've wanted to drive this for years, ever since I saw it at one of our RCR meets many, many ages ago. I was different then. At least I think I was. I'd see a Mustang and I'd want to drive it. But I've grown more discerning, albeit not in a way that actually serves me. I think maybe I've simply had too much Ford in my life. Or maybe I haven't experienced a large enough variety of Fords for this to make a difference to me. Because everything sort of just feels the same at this point. It's a day ending in Y, with the same odds of being fulfilling as any other. Sure, tell me how love for a good car is redemptive like the love of a good woman. Lie to me and say that if I have an SN95 Mustang in my life again, I'll know the kind of peace that evades people with empathy. Let me live in that world for just a little bit longer, before I return to the world in which I'm tired of that. Because for a few brief moments on the highway, I felt like a lost version of myself, the one who tied his identity to his car and somehow felt richer for the cliché. The Mustang encourages it. It encourages you to think yourself cooler for driving one. And that's doubly so for the SN95, even if it's not regarded as being one of the good ones. The SN95 is the worst-stang, they say. But it's simply an outsider, like the Fox body before it. And I can't hate outsiders. I don't know how. The likeness is too strong. Hi, I'm TV's Nick Roman. And I know what you're thinking. Nick, when were you ever on TV? If you'd like to support regular car reviews, please consider joining us on Patreon for just $1 and get early ad-free videos along with other exclusive content that you'll never get here. Or you could just leave a like, a comment, consider subscribing, and even hitting the bell icon so you never miss another video. Thank you so much for watching, and have an outstanding rest of your week. I think I've been looking at the little mini screen instead of actually at the lens. Sorry, I'm really bad at making eye contact.